So I heard you want to run a half marathon and you want to figure out the most optimal setup for training and nutrition and mindset going into that process. Well, you come to the right place, my friends. Because today I am going to talk you through the approach I will be taking or have started to take for my 1 hour 50 half marathon attempt. So let's get stuck in. So to make things a little bit simple to explain, I've created a table that encompasses all of the training runs I intend to do between now and May. Did I mention? No, I didn't mention. The half marathon I'm entered into is the Edinburgh Half Marathon, which is on the 24th of May. So I have from now to the 24th of May to get stuck in. So I'm giving myself a really good window of time to prepare because I want to go into this race feeling like I have not left a single crumb on that table. I have given this training plan my absolute all. I have dedicated as much time as possible to it without dedicating too much time that I hit a bit of a wall or a block or a barrier, 4-6 weeks out. So each week I'm splitting my runs into a speed focused run, a distance focused run, and then an optional recovery run. The reason I'm calling it an optional recovery run is because I know what I'm like. I am not the kind of person who can manage with just one rest day a week most of the time. I can maybe do 6-day training weeks for a couple of weeks, and then there will be a week where I will need an extra rest day. My body just can't manage that level of strain repetitively in the way that other people can. And I've accepted that. So the recovery run is optional for the weeks where I feel like I have it in me, whilst giving myself the grace for those weeks where I do need that extra rest day to dedicate my day to that instead. So the speed run tab, we've got a mixture of speed runs that I'm programming for myself and then some speed runs that I'm getting involved with at track nights at my local outdoor track, whereby the programming is done by them and I just sort of follow what they're doing. So that's where, when it says Meadowbank intervals, that's what I mean by that. So as you can see, the distance runs I've kept pretty simple. For a lot of my clients, we will do varying pace runs, but because I'm programming for myself, I kind of just want to give myself a bit of a ballpark figure. And then if I feel like I'm making good headway with the sessions as they're laid out, I can continue with those figures. If I feel like I need to make adjustments as I go, then I can do. But you'll see that we're gradually pulling the distance up from 1 month to the next with a couple of taper weeks in there. So for example, the 23rd of March, I've done a 13K the week before. I'm going to do a 10K the week after. Same goes for the 27th of April, I did an 18K the week before. I'll do a 16K the week after, so that it's not just more without any let up between now and then. And then my recovery runs are much more time based, so not necessarily distance based, with a rough guide to the pace that I'm aiming for. Again, I will probably be relatively flexible with those depending on how my body is feeling from 1 week to the next. So I've got 2 to 3 training runs a week with a set focus on each, rather than just 3 lots of 5-kilometer runs, 3 lots of 6-kilometer runs, 3 lots of 7-kilometer runs. We want to have variety, especially because I do have a time-based goal that I'm aiming for, rather than just getting the distance in my legs. I need to make sure that I'm dedicating as much time to my speed work as I am my distance work, and then combining those two together. So that's the training side, that's the running training side of things. And then I'll also be following a 2 to 3 day gym training plan as well. And I've been following the same plan since the start of January. And that has been a 2 full body, 1 lower body day split. I've been really enjoying that setup. And I think what I'm going to do is continue this training plan and just make a couple of tweaks, a couple of adjustments. So I want to add in a little bit more plyometric work, which I don't have too much of in my current plan. So I want to be adding in some drop jumps or some box jumps, some lateral hops, some more athletic power-based plyometric exercises in there, as well as a couple of extra calf-based strength training exercises in there too. I'll obviously be making sure that I am doing a really thorough, dynamic, active warm-up for before my runs, and I'll be doing a proper cool down after my runs. On weeks where I'm not wanting to get a recovery run in, I might instead go to the pool and do 20 minutes of gentle laps, just so that I'm having more of an active recovery day and taking that pressure off my body. So each week my training will look like 2 or 3 runs, 2 or 3 strength sessions, again, depending on my rate of recovery that week. So I'll always have at least 1 rest day a week or 2 rest days on the weeks where I think I will need it, and I will take it week by week and go off how my body's feeling, how I'm feeling generally to decipher that. So that's training done. Let's move to nutrition, because aesthetic goals are not the only times that we need to prioritize specific protocols around nutrition. Any performance related goal, we need to have a heavy emphasis on what our diet looks like. A, so that we're training optimally with optimal fueling and energy storage. And B, for optimal recovery. Because if we're eating enough on our training days, but then significantly under eating on our recovery days, we're going to start feeling the effect on how well our body is recovering between sessions. You're going to start feeling more DOMS or muscle soreness. You're going to feel more tired, more lethargic going into your runs, less motivated. The runs themselves are going to feel a bit crap because you're relying so heavily on the food that you're taking in just on run days and not taking into consideration what's going on outside of those run days. Or your only focus is on what your diet looks like before and after the runs, but then the rest of the day isn't really accounted for. So diet's still going to be a real hot topic as I go into this training block. So on my training run days, I will always, where possible, train first thing in the morning. So for the most part, I will have a quick release carbohydrate snack or small meal before I go out on a training run, depending on the length of the run. Anything that's less than 60 minutes, I will generally be satisfied with something like malt loaf, 30 grams malt loaf, or a banana. Anything longer than 60 minutes, I will have a more substantial small meal rather than a snack. So I'll have a bagel thin or a bagel with some banana and honey, or I'll have a couple of unflavoured rice cakes with banana and honey, or I'll have more malt loaf. What else would I generally tend to do? Any kind of crumpet, white toast, anything that's going to give you a quick release of glycogen to utilise when you're in that run. You're giving your body that very efficient uptake of glucose. And then when I get home, I generally don't tend to get too hungry until about 45 minutes to an hour after I've done the run. But then when that hunger hits, it hits. So I'll make sure that for my next meal, my sort of breakfast or my brunch is easy to prep, quick to prep, and hits what I need it to hit. So protein intake, 30 grams minimum, which will normally be in the form of either Greek yogurt or serving of protein powder, a 25-30 gram serving of protein powder, or maybe some egg whites and eggs. And then I'll have a slightly slower releasing carbohydrate source, so some oats or some seeded wholemeal bread. And then I'll get some, fruit or veg and colour in there, more so for the satiety effect than anything else, just making sure that I feel really nice and satisfied from that meal. Antioxidants in the form of blueberries or things like chia seeds, flax seeds, to help with the sort of anti-inflammatory effect post-run. And then some fats in there again to help with satiety more so than anything, because the main focus that we want on a post-run meal is the protein and the carbohydrates, to kind of restock the energy that you've lost within that run, which is going to really help with the recovery. That, and I'll also have probably a glass of electrolytes either during the run, so I'll have it in my water bottle, or post-run to get that uptake of sodium and potassium that I would have lost during the run. Next couple meals of the day will be very heavily focused on your basics, just making sure I've got a portion of protein, a portion of carbohydrates, a portion of fats, and a portion of fruit and or veg within one plate. And it kind of can just be as simple as that. You don't want to just prioritize your carbohydrates all around training and then go teetotal for the rest of the day. You want to have a nice steady stream of carbohydrates going in. You want to make sure your protein's in a good place. You want to make sure you're getting good nutrients from your meals from the fruit and veg aspects. And then healthy fats for all of the benefits that provides in terms of hormonal health, especially if you are a female with a high energy expenditure rate. You want to make sure you're giving your body enough healthy fats to manage the hormonal health aspect that can come from a quite intense training load. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the diet side of things. I will very rarely drink alcohol the night before a big training run. So anything, again, that's, anything above a 7 out of 10 in terms of intensity, I will generally not drink alcohol the night before, because I'd rather feel fresh and ready to give the run my all than feel a bit jaded and feel like I'm kind of fighting against my body in the run. For me, in a half marathon prep, it's just not worth it. I will probably have an alcoholic drink like a couple of days before a long run, so I've got at least 48 hours to get it out of my system. But the few weeks before I do the half itself, I will probably go sober, just because of the impact that even 1 or 2 glasses of alcohol has on my rate of recovery. I don't want anything getting in the way or jeopardizing this goal for myself. Diet, tick. Fucking hell, we're speeding through this. Glorious work. And then mindset is a huge contributing factor to the success or the failure of a goal that people just don't put anywhere near enough weight towards. Like I said at the start, I want to get to the finish line of that half marathon knowing that I have given it 175% of my effort. I have given it my all. I have not left a single crumb on that table. That is the attitude I want to be holding by the time I cross that finish line. I want to start the race knowing you literally couldn't have done more to prepare yourself today. Whatever the outcome, you have done your best. That's my attitude when I enter into any mentally testing goal, mentally and physically testing. I want to know that I've done my absolute best regardless of the outcome. So that's mindset trick number 1, is just being really honest with yourself about how much this goal means to you at the start of the process. If it means a lot, and you know that you're the kind of person who will get really annoyed if you don't think you've done your best, then make that a non-negotiable going into the process. Every single day, every single session, you do your absolute best.
An on the day update. So I'm going to be editing this video later today, but I just wanted to interject momentarily and tell you that we've just been away for a little weekend getaway around Loch Lomond or Loch Lomond. I can never remember how you pronounce it, but like over the west coast of Scotland for a little getaway. It is Sunday. It is 11 a.m. currently. We've just done a 2-hour drive home in the snow, and we had a really rough night's sleep last night for a couple of reasons. So I am not feeling too hot today. We did a long hike and walk yesterday, racked up like 20,000 steps across the day. Like, my legs are pretty tired, and I honestly could have thought of a million different reasons and a million different excuses to get me out of doing this run. And genuinely the only reason I'm doing it is because I'm holding myself accountable, knowing that I'm going to be editing this video, talking about everything that I spoke about in the video of not leaving anything left on the table, giving this my absolute all. And I just thought I would consider myself the biggest hypocrite if I didn't then get my ass up and out and on this run. I'm giving myself some grace and going to the gym to do it on the treadmill, but it's getting done today, come rain or shine or snow, which we had quite a lot of this morning. This is me holding myself accountable to you, the person watching this video, to say that I don't want to do this run. Not a single part of me wants to do this run, but it's in the programme and I've not completed it yet this week. So off we bloody well go. And it will come as a surprise to absolutely fucking nobody that I feel so much better for having got that done. Not only because I've, upheld my own standards, yada, 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 but that run felt really good. It was 7k at 5:10 and it felt really good. And generally longer steady pace runs on the treadmill feel really, really hard for me, because running faster on the running at your normal outdoor pace on the treadmill will always feel a little bit harder because there's no leeway. But that felt really good. I love following the plan, not the mood, because it will always make me feel better, even just mentally being able to tick that off. But also physically I feel fucking amazing now as well, and I feel great knowing that I am one run closer to having done my best on half marathon day. Oh! Post-run endorphins, you literally cannot beat it. And now I need some lunch quite urgently.
Kind of branching off of that concept, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. Let's just let that sink in a little bit. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. That's essentially saying if you go into a run believing you can do it, the likelihood of you doing it is going to be so much more substantial or so much higher than going into the run believing you can't do it. If you believe you can't do it, you're going to be much more inclined to prove yourself right. If you believe you can do it, you're going to be much more inclined to prove yourself right. Either way, whatever attitude you head into a run or a training session with, that will have the biggest impact on the quality of that session. And then there's a couple of phrases that I will repeat and chant to clients and to myself when I'm heading into a long run, or I'm heading into a race, or they're heading into a long run, or they're heading into a race. Chant number 1, you can do hard things. Pretty self-explanatory. But again, it's similar to the, if you think you can and you think you can't, you're probably right. Same goes with that messaging. You can do hard things. It's not, there's no try, there's no hope. It's a rounded statement. There's no open end to it. You can do hard things. So go and do hard things. And the second one is, every time I get a client doing a race, I will get them to write SCC on their hand in Sharpie. And the reason I get them to write that is because it stands for strong, calm, capable. Strong, because you can do it. Calm, because you're not going to get flustered. You're going to trust your body. You're going to trust your training. Capable does what it says on the tin. And every time they look down at their hand and they're reminded of those 3 words, it will hopefully just give them that little boost that they need when they're in the really crappy pain cave moments of the run. And then kind of general lifestyle habits that I'm integrating into my routine even more heavily than I have been doing. Sleep is obviously a gigantic factor as to the success or failure of something like a half marathon. If you are putting your sleep on the back burner every single day, and you are fighting against tiredness, you are fighting against fatigue, you're just creating a losing battle for yourself before you even really get stuck into your training. Prioritizing sleep hygiene, and a good evening routine and a good morning routine and a good sleep-wake cycle is one of the most impactful lifestyle factors that you can dedicate yourself to when it comes to having a successful half marathon training block or running training block, whatever the training is for. Water intake, again, pretty self-explanatory. Something I'm actually trialing over the next few weeks is manipulating my water intake on my long run day so that I'm not having to drink as much water on the run itself to keep myself hydrated, but I'm focusing on good water intake before I start and good water intake afterwards, because I've actually found that on my longer runs or when I was training for my high rocks, I don't actually do that well with lots of water in my system. I find it makes me feel a little bit unwell, and it takes my focus away from the run itself, because I'm focusing on how that water intake is feeling and it's sitting in my stomach. So I'm going to trial a bit of an adjusted approach to water intake and fluid intake in this training block over the next few weeks and see how I get on. But even so, even if I'm not drinking as much water in the run itself, I'm still prioritizing water intake in the 24 hours around the run and all the other 24 hours in between runs. And comparison. This is one that, again, goes very under the radar and very unnoticed. I'm really proactively unfollowing, or at least muting, people who I've been following online on social media who also have running goals, who I consider to be better than myself in terms of the times that they're doing and the pace that they're running at and what their recovery runs are in comparison to my recovery runs. I'm actively muting or unfollowing those people so that I don't get caught up in a comparison spiral and lose focus on what this run means to me. In doing so, that's also me reiterating to myself, this goal is for me and me alone, and Strava, because Strava kudos, obviously. That was a joke. Okay, the final thing I wanted to talk about is how to factor something like a half marathon training block into your year as a whole. So obviously if you've been following my channel up to now, you'll know that I'm currently in a fat loss phase. I have joined our Accelerate 8-week group coaching fat loss program. I'm joining in with the girls who are involved in that program, involved in this intake, and I'm focusing on fat loss right now. One of the biggest reasons as to why I wanted to focus on fat loss to start the year off was to help with this half marathon training block. I wanted to get a few kg off to make half marathon training easier. It's not rocket science to understand that the less mass you have to carry, the easier running is, to a degree. So I wanted to get a few kilograms off, get myself feeling really good in myself physically, aesthetically, and also psychologically, the positive impact that was going to have on my running as I head into this half marathon training block. And I've planned it as such so that by the end of those 8 weeks, that's when I start entering into double-digit run territory. At the moment, up until the 23rd of Feb, my runs are in the single-digit territory in terms of kilometers covered. When I start entering into those double-digit territories, I cannot be in a fat loss phase anymore, nor will I want to be in a fat loss phase anymore. You know, eating less and actively aiming for a caloric deficit, that's just not gonna suit my goals moving forward into the end of February and into March. And that's what's so important about phasing goals into the year as a whole and seeing the year from that bird's eye view. If you're wanting to focus on fat loss at the exact same time as running a half marathon, you're going to fuck yourself over in both camps, because it's going to be really fucking difficult to stay in a caloric deficit because you're going to be so hungry from all of the training that you're doing towards the half marathon. And because you're going to be so hungry doing the half marathon training, that half marathon training is going to feel so much harder, and you're probably not going to have as much success in that training as a result, which means you're going to have a negative knock-on effect to the race day itself. So you need to have a look at your year as a whole and say, right, what do I want to achieve this year? Okay, I want to tick off a really good solid fat loss phase. I want to lose 10 kg and I want to run a half marathon. And I also want to do a photo shoot in there. I want to do a high rocks race in there as well. You need to make sure that you are planning all of these different goals into the year as a whole, and to ensure that you're not overlapping them too much whatsoever, if at all, if you can get away with it. You want to make sure that you're dedicating yourself to one goal at a time and giving that goal your all and putting all of this attention and detail into it in order to create a really good result at the end. You can't be doing that if you're looking at 2, 3, 4, 5 goals all in one hit. You're just going to burn yourself out. You're going to burn the candle at 17 different ends, and you're not going to get a good result from any of those goals because your eye isn't on one at a time, it's on everything. So that's why I'm in a fat loss phase at the moment, or partly why I'm in a fat loss phase at the moment, and it's why I have created or structured my year as such to ensure that by the time I finish my fat loss phase, that's when I start ramping up my training for my half marathon. So that's something to bear in mind when you're looking at what goals you have for the year and how you're going to integrate that into the next 11 months. And that in a nutshell is my half marathon training block rundown. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you are feeling more prepared for your own half marathon training block if that's something you're heading into. And obviously if you are looking for support with your training goals this year, if you have a race booked in, or you have a fat loss goal that you're working towards, you have a holiday, you have a wedding, you have whatever it is, if you want my support, please just drop me a message over on Instagram. I'll leave my bio here. Drop me a message over on Instagram. Talk me through the goals that you've got, and I am more than happy to help. We will put this amount of energy and detail into your goals as well. Lovely stuff. Right, go and have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.